Well, what bad luck. This is the area where I said I've always had good luck. And I set 3 snares here, I believe. And I had one here. I'm pretty sure it was tied to this branch. And it's gone. Completely gone. My best guess, and we had a real snow last night. That one of the reasons I was, just unable to get home from work early enough to check snares the last 2 days. And we had like a snowstorm yesterday. Just was unable to check. That's one of the reasons you should check your snares every day, sort of thing, right? But in practicality, with people with full-time jobs, they just can't do that sometimes. Anyway, yeah, the snare is completely gone. So, and there's no tracks because it snowed. Like we had to shovel the driveway this morning. It snowed a lot last night. Doesn't look like a lot of snow, but it snowed, then it rained, sort of thing, right? So whatever happened here, the evidence is all gone. No blood, there's no hair, I don't see it. My best guess is that a rabbit got in here, died, froze solid, and a coyote or a bobcat or something came along and just pulled on it until it broke off, because it's just gone, right? And it wasn't alive when all that was happening. It was dead and frozen solid, so it's not too hard for a large predator to just break the snare off. Usually when that happens, there's still a bit of the old snare still attached. It's completely gone here, so it's a bit curious. Anyway, all I can do is set another one and check it tomorrow, right? But I don't see any sign of it. I don't believe it was the kind of stick. Sometimes you set what's called a drag snare, where you have a longish pole that that the animal can't get too far with. That's in a situation where you just can't drive the pole into the ground. But this one here, it was anchored. I remember taking the time to anchor it in there. So yeah, it's just gone. So anyway, I'm going to set another snare. I'm losing my light here. I've only got about half an hour of light, so I better get at it. All right, that's all redone. I got it nicely closed in. Little chin lifter at the bottom there. Check that in a day or so and see what happens. Here's another spot where I had a snare set. I can see the flag up here. This one here, I know I attached a flag to the stick the snare was attached to, because I didn't feel it was secured that well. So that's the run. You can see there's rabbit droppings right there. There's a number of them, which means a rabbit was caught in there, thrashed around a bit. Anyway, you can see that it's all constrained. It's a good spot. There was good tracks here, but the snare's gone. This crossbar is gone. The thing the snare was attached to is gone. Everything was gone. Right, so I noticed that when I got here, probed around a little bit, just started circling out. And that's one of the reasons, if you have a crossbar with a snare attached to it and you're not confident in how it's secured to the ground, put a marker on it. But I didn't have to go far. I found it right over here, which is about 10-15 feet away. So here I find it, marked, and look, broken off down there. So I can only, again, there's no tracks here because it snowed last night. And this again speaks to the importance of checking snares often. I haven't checked these since Monday, and it's Thursday now, right? So that's 2 nights basically. I guess 3 nights. Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Something happened. Something found this guy. My guess is that the rabbit expired in the snare where it was set, because I had a point on it. It was stuck in the ground, right? I remember thinking only a really magnificent rabbit could get this out. My guess is that the rabbit was dead. And if there wasn't so much, if it hadn't just snowed, we'd see the, forensic evidence of what happened. But my guess is that some big predator came along and, broke the snare off. Usually when a rabbit breaks a snare off, sometimes it breaks where it's attached, but not always, right? And yeah, it shouldn't have broken. Usually when it breaks off to the attachment, it's when the attachment is very, very stiff and it's got no give, at least in my experience. Like when you attach it to a fixed tree like this, it's got no give. But something whippy like a fishing rod, it doesn't usually break off at the attachment. And I mean, I have my snares the right size, so they should have just took the thing out. When they're in the snare properly, they don't have time to struggle. because the blood flow has been cut off, right? They die quickly, just like if you watch MMA, they're getting choked out, right? It doesn't last long. They don't have time to struggle and wear the wire down, okay, when you've got it the right size. That happens when you got a really big circle, right? When you make your snares big. Anyway, I'm going to reset this one again, right? I think what happened here is just something came along, found it. There's lots of coyote tracks in the woods right now, all along my trails. They use my trails. So I'm guessing it's coyote. It might be bobcat, but I'm guessing it's coyote. All right, so this is a good sign, even though I missed my rabbit here. When you check the snares, you should really try hard not to step on the rabbit tracks. It throws them off when they're running at night. It can smell you or sense something's off. It spooks them, so I'm going to try not to step on these rabbit tracks. Right here you can see where I put my snare on the run. Snow level went up a little bit, so the snare is actually low now. The rabbit went around it, right? Didn't like the constraint, didn't choose to stuff its head into that scary little hole. So I got to block that passageway off. Add a little bit more above. Raise the snare a little bit. And hopefully, when this rabbit comes back, actually I can see this rabbit went both directions. So when it went down, came back. That's good. That means regular use, right? It's not just a scouting run. So I'm going to fix the snare. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all done. All right, so I've fixed this. I've raised the height of the snare just by putting a little bend in the wire. That won't affect anything. I can adjust it back down if the snow levels go down. I've added some stuff around it to give the rabbit nowhere to go other than through the hole. And I've made the cross, what's it called, duck bar. I made the duck bar a little more substantial so the rabbit doesn't elect to jump over it. Okay, so this comes back through here, should force him in the hole. I also put another snare here where I saw him going through this natural constraint. So hopefully one of those gets him. And because I couldn't drive this stake all the way into the ground, because the ground's so frozen, I just tied it to this tree, right, with this bank line. That's an old trick, right? If you can't, either you attach a snare to something so big the rabbit can't drag it, or so long and you attach it in the middle where the rabbit's going to get fetched up really close by, or you tie, right? You place it where you want to place it, and you tie it off. You got to use a knot that's not going to get loose, right? I'm just using a pony knot on that. Same thing with the tree I've tied it to there. You just tie it to something, so it can't go far. And that's how you solve that problem. All right, that's how I'm doing it. All right, so here's a spot where I had a snare set the other day, this little hole, and the snare's missing. And I looked just a few feet to the right, and there's a rabbit. And this is one of the ones I said I couldn't get the stick in properly, and I knew the rabbit would pull the stick out. But look, I tied it on to that tree, right? And that's why the rabbit didn't drag it somewhere. I mean, I got a marker on the stick, so I should be able to track it and find it. We had a lot of snow and a lot of rain. Sometimes a rabbit moves it and the whole thing gets buried in snow and it just vanishes, or it's coyote food. So I managed to salvage this guy, or gal, whatever it is. So that's rabbit number 1 for the year. I got a snare right over there that has not been touched. He's probably coming this way, so we didn't get to the other one. I got another snare over there. You can't see it. Maybe you can see the pink ribbon, but it's untouched. And I got another snare right here. So I hit the spot hard. Every entry point I could see where there was tracks. And of course we had freezing rain last night, so all the tracks have disappeared. Anyway, rabbit number 1, even though we had a storm last night, you should check your snares daily. Predators use your trails and they'll take your stuff, especially if it's a meal like this, a very easy, tasty meal. Rabbit number 1. Just wanted to show this for those that I always get in these videos where people say, oh, it's really wet where I live, and your forest isn't wet. Where I live, it's really wet. And well, maybe that's true, but you know, what am I looking at right here? This is a rock. Okay, it's a big granite rock, about 5 feet high, 6-7 feet in diameter. What is growing out of the rock? I mean, you see snow here, but this is a rock with various lichens on it. There is a birch tree. I'd say it's a yellow birch if I had to guess. There's a birch tree growing out of the rock. I mean, this tree isn't going to live a long life. It's not going to be a huge tree. But this is a birch tree growing out of a rock. Okay? So, that doesn't happen in a dry place. Trees only grow on rocks where there's a lot of moisture. It's wet where I live. Alright? Over here, you see this? We got a spruce tree growing out of the rock. Okay? Some kind of spruce tree. It might be a juniper. I think it's a spruce tree. But it's growing, and you know, there's ferns. But this is a rock. A 6-foot high rock. Right? This tree cannot reach the water with its roots. It's getting the water it needs from the moss that grows on the rock. And the only reason moss grows on the rock all year long, because it rains a lot here. So I'm just out checking the snares after work today. Got about half an hour before sunset, so I gotta hustle, or I'll get trapped out here in the middle of nowhere. I'm like maybe a 15-minute hike from the road. So anyway, what I'm showing you here today is a lesson in closing off runs. So I got a spot here. We had snow recently, so I re-established the run, right, because the snare was buried. And I had, when there was soft snow, right now the snow is hard, you can't see tracks, but there was a rabbit going around this side. I didn't film this because I was in a rush that night. Rabbit was going around, and would go around this side. So I closed it all in, made it so that they can't jump over top, put that snare there. No action, no love. Over here's a spot where I got a rabbit a couple days ago. Re-established this. No action, no love. I got a snare over there, and I can see, you can't see on the camera, but no action. Right there. It's bent up a little bit because it was buried in snow. I like my snare to be a nice smooth circle. This got all messed up when I was trying to, it was frozen into the snow, and I bent it a little bit, and I didn't want to reset it. I just put it out as is, hoping that a rabbit would be dumb enough to run through it. Anyway, no action here. But I noticed that they'd found an alternate way around this natural barrier. Right, so I got a nice hole here where I got a rabbit a few days ago. But I noticed they'd made a path in through here. And instead of blocking it off, I just worked with it. I thought, they think this is a safe way in. So I put a snare. And we got this guy. And thankfully I got him before the coyotes got him. So there's another rabbit for the pot. Maybe I'll do a cooking video. I like to make borscht with rabbits. It's kind of a beet soup. Rabbit has a really strong flavor. Goes really good with the sweetness of beets. Anyway, I got one there. That's good. All right, I got just 2 more snares to check. Just a quick little clip here. Some people have asked me what I do with the rabbit. I'm making borscht. So I've already cleaned the rabbit and simmered it for about an hour. Taken it out, cooled it down, deboned it. All the bones are in the compost there. And then even the chunks of meat, after I pull them off the bones, I actually dice them up very carefully on a cutting board to probe for bones. I'll show you how I do that in a minute. Because that's one of the challenges with rabbit. There's bones in it. There's you know, intelligent ways to process it, to cut down the risk of there being bones in it. I suppose I should have filmed that, but I just was busy and I didn't do that. But then after you've got it off the bone, you should still cut it up just to feel for bones with a knife. So I'll show that in a minute. But the general ingredients are about 8 cups of water, an onion, 3 cloves of garlic, teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of pepper, maybe a little more, depends on your taste, 2 bay leaves, and then you want meat. I'm using rabbit here, but you can use any kind of meat. Cabbage, optional, but cabbage is good. And 3 really big beets, or 4 or 5 medium beets, about this much. I got about 4 cups of grated up beets. I grated up in this old knuckle buster here. There's a point near the end where it's too small to grate, so you just dice those little corners up, so you get those nice little bits to chew on in the borscht as well. And the rabbit, right? That's it. You just put that all in and let it simmer for about, bring it to a boil, then let it simmer for an hour. Serve with, you can just serve it as is with some bread or whatever, however you want to have your soup, but traditionally you'd have that with a little, you put maybe a teaspoon of sour cream in your bowl, some nice fresh dill. That's the traditional way to do it as far as I understand it. That's the way it was taught to me. And I mean, there's lots of different ways to cook rabbit. Of course, rabbit stew, rabbit pie, etc. But for me, having 2 kids, this I think is the preferred mode of delivery in the house, because the beets, it's good to have a very strong meat with borscht. It's traditionally made with like mutton, right? So rabbit is a very strong tasting meat. Then you get all the sweetness and sugar of the beets, so it goes really well together. So that's how you make borscht. I got about maybe 3 cups of shredded up cabbage here, about 4 cups of shredded beets. I'll put the ingredients in the description box, or maybe even up on the screen. I got about, in total, maybe 4 cups of meat off. This is 2 rabbits. You can make it with 1, but 2's better. Or make it with 1 rabbit and a couple pieces of sausage or whatever stuff you got lying around. I didn't use, so many cooking shows, they use stock. I just used water. You don't need to buy a thing of stock with this. If you take your rabbits, you skin them and gut them and all sort of stuff, throw them in there and boil them and simmer for like an hour until the meat can be pulled off the bones. You're going to have stock, so you don't need to buy stock. All right, that's how I make rabbit borscht. It's something I look forward to every year. And I'm like last year I didn't get any rabbits. There was just nothing going on in the woods. It's unbelievable. First time in my life I've seen it like that. But great to do it this year. So here's all I'll do to just that final stage deboning. Right, I've got all this deboned meat, and about every half inch or so, I just very slowly, so you don't want to break any bones, right? Very slowly slice my way through, and if there's any bones in there, you'll feel them on the edge of your knife. You just do it slowly. You're not doing that sort of thing. You're sliding the blade through very slowly. Rabbit bones are really hard, so you'll feel them on the blade. So far, for this entire 2 rabbits, I've found 2 bones, so I've done a good job deboning the rabbit. Oh, there's something there. I can feel it. I don't know where it is. I'm just going to throw that whole thing apart. You don't want anybody choking to death, right? So sometimes you can fish through and try to find them, and sometimes the bones are so small you just take the whole little section of meat and toss it. Seems wasteful, but it's better than somebody choking on a bone. Or even nobody chokes on a bone, when someone, senses one when they're chewing. It just freaks everybody out. Rabbit bones can be really sharp, really short. Not the sort of thing you want to swallow. So be very careful with your deboning. All right, so here we are, the final product. Okay, lots and lots of meat. It's a pretty healthy meal because rabbit's so lean. Traditional way to have this is with like a teaspoonful of sour cream, totally optional. And you're supposed to put fresh dill on it, which is really, really good. I don't have any fresh dill. I got this dry dill from my garden, so you can put some dry dill in there, but like a good amount. Like, let's say, I don't know, I like 2 heaping tablespoons of diced up fresh dill. It really goes good with it, right? But yeah, you can have it like that, or you can mix the sour cream all in. It really depends on your preference, I guess. Again, I do not come from Eastern Europe. At least I don't know. Who knows what's rattling around in the DNA there? But maybe there's a little bit in there, because I love borscht. And there's difference of versions of borscht all through Eastern Europe. And it's just a delicious way to eat a rabbit or any other form of game, or any cheap meat, or even sausages. Really good in borscht. You can have it with anything. But that's borscht. Really good.